Welcome is indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Ritchie. Good to be with you. We got a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day, the big homie, David Shuster, TYT contributor, Rebel HQ. I call him a Rebel HQ leader. Yes, his videos are awesome. All right, also breaking down news in the bullpen. And I say that because it's not really a debate. We have White House correspondent Christian Daytalk. We've had him on the show before. Very common sense guy, giving us some news about a few things, including the nomination process of Judge Brown. Top story of the day, Clarence Thomas. His wife was at the January 6th terrorist attack. Let's put up that picture. You see the happy couple here? Her name is Virginia. They call her Jenny. She's the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. She has now admitted publicly that she did in fact attend the January 6th Stop the Steal rally that ended up being a massive domestic terrorist attack in the United States of America. Virginia Thomas, wife of the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, for the first time has publicly acknowledged that she participated in the January 6, 2021 Stop the Steal rally on the ellipse that preceded the storming of the Capitol by pro-Trump mob, raising questions about the impartiality of her husband's work. I got a lot of questions here because now some of his rulings that were contrary to the ruling of every single justice on the Supreme Court now makes sense. It gets deeper. In an interview with the conservative Washington Free Beacon that was published Monday, Thomas, who goes by Jenny, said she was part of the crowd that gathered that morning supporting President Donald Trump. Trump was claiming falsely that widespread voter fraud had delivered the presidency to Democrat Joe Biden, a falsehood he continues to repeat today. Let's put their pictures back up again. Those two individuals believe in the falsehood. One of them happens to be a Supreme Court justice. The other one, well, she's an attorney, but she's his wife. Thomas said that she was at the rally for just a short time. She got cold and went home before Trump took the stage at noon that day. Now, I don't know about this part. Okay, maybe she left early, maybe she's lying. But she didn't leave early because she was cold. Maybe she left early because somebody told her what was about to happen. Maybe she left early because somebody warned her what Donald Trump was going to say in his speech. Maybe she left early because she was listening to the crowd and the crowd made it very clear that after Donald Trump speaks, they were going to in fact commit an act of domestic terrorism against the United States Capitol, that they were there to stop the process that's constitutionally mandated, known as certifying the presidential election. Maybe she got wind of that, and then she left. She has security detail. Maybe somebody put her on notice. The attack by pro-Trump mob trying to stop the confirmation of Biden's electoral college win left the Capitol vandalized and resulted in the deaths of 5 people and injuries to 140 members of law enforcement, according to the Washington Post. There were many individuals injured as well, outside of the police. I owe you all an apology. I have likely imposed on you my lifetime passions, Thomas wrote to a private Thomas Clerk World email list of her husband's staff over his 3 decades on the bench. In December, Mrs. Thomas was among a group of conservative leaders who signed a letter criticizing the work of the bipartisan House committee as overtly partisan political prosecution. The next month, get this, the Supreme Court decided on Trump's request to deny the committee White House records that Biden had ordered to be released. Instead of recusing himself from the case, Clarence Thomas was the only justice, the lone justice, to say that he would grant Trump's request. Now I want you to think about this. Biden is president of the United States. There's a lawful investigation. That lawful investigation allows for Congress to have the power of oversight, the power of subpoena. These things are normative with Congress, with the Department of Justice. There's nothing abnormal about these things. That's why all of the Supreme Court justices said, no, former President Trump, you cannot block normative procedure just because you are the former president of the United States. But these two did. Let's put their pictures back up. They thought it was wrong. And I say both of them because there is no coincidence that she believed Trump's request should be adhered to. And he's the only Supreme Court justice that believed the same damn thing. It's called pillow talk. Let's make it plain. That's your other Supreme Court justice. Her name is Virginia. Well, look at that. In an interview, Ginny Thomas insisted that her work is separate from that of her husband. I insist. And since I have been such an upstanding individual so far by not telling you the truth that I was at the January 6th rally, I'm sure that when I put I insist in front of it, everyone shall believe me. Here's the thing, Miss Virginia. If what you did was so noble and honorable, why hide it for over a year? If what you did was actually stand up for democracy, why not proudly proclaim that immediately? If there's absolutely no issue between your advocacy and the way your husband rules in major judicial cases in the highest court of the land, if there's no issue, why the deception here? David, thoughts?
Dr. Richie, I'm so glad you mentioned the consciousness of guilt that Ginny Thomas clearly has. And for me, the issue is, you know what, Ginny Thomas, she's gonna believe what she wants. For Clarence Thomas, though, and I also get that, you know, for his sake, for the sake of his own domestic tranquility in his household, maybe he couldn't talk his wife out of doing this stuff. Maybe he couldn't talk her out of, attending something so overtly political. But then the responsibility is on him to step aside from any case having anything to do with the election with Joe Biden or with Donald Trump. Because it's not just enough, as you know, to avoid actual conflicts of interest, which clearly there are, but even the appearance of a conflict of interest must be avoided. And if Thomas says, you know what, I can't control my wife and I'm not gonna control my wife, and if she wants to go to a rally, fine. Then he needs to then assert himself and say, I am stepping away from the Supreme Court on the following cases. And I'm not even gonna explain why, but there's a conflict of interest and that's that. If he had done that, okay, fine. I would still think his wife is crazy, but at least I'd have some respect for him. In the absence of that, there's no respect whatsoever.
That's very well said, because not only did he vote in the dissent, he then decided to write a summary of his dissent. I mean, it took a lot of thought, it took a lot of planning to do all of this, and he decided to go full throttle and be the contrarian to every single justice in the Supreme Court. Fascinating stuff. Let me tell you about what happened in Georgia, a place called Cartersville. You had about 65, 70 primarily black children, black youth, arrested for less than 1 ounce of marijuana that was found on the outside of the home. Cops come through, they arrest all of them, every single one of them. They take them to jail, process them. Some of them actually got jail time. And guess what? A judge has agreed they were targeted. The prosecutor agreed they were targeted, and now the police, they are paying those young black people about $1 million. I kid you not. Let's put up a picture of one of the individuals. She says she has been traumatized. Her name is Deja Hurd. I'm gonna give you some background to this story. This first happened in 2017. It was a house party in a place called Cartersville, Georgia. It ended up with 70 young people being arrested. The vast majority of them were black. They were known as the Cartersville 70 when that happened. Deja Hurd, the young lady you see right there, she was one of the wrongfully arrested partygoers and the birthday girl that night. She told the local news, WSB-TV, quote, "I literally was in shackles from my arms and they were tied around my ankles as well. It was very traumatic." They shackled these children from top to bottom for less than 1 ounce of marijuana, not found on any person, not found in the home, but found on the outside of the house. Hurd says she'll never forget what happened at her 21st birthday party when she rented out a Cartersville home through Airbnb to celebrate with her friends. A total of 65 young people, mostly black, ended up in this Bartow County jail. Cartersville police illegally entered the home without a warrant. Here's the Cartersville home she rented. Very basic home. It was not a mansion. They just wanted to have a good time. Here are some of the others who were arrested that night. They're connected to the settlement. Prosecutors say the young people were targeted and a judge completely agreed. Now here are some of the details. This actually happened, even though it was to celebrate a birthday, it happened on New Year's Eve in 2017. 70 people, including 5 juveniles, were arrested during a Bartow County house party for allegedly possessing less than an ounce of marijuana. Investigators previously said no one claimed the illegal drugs. Now I want to pause on this moment because this right here is a systemic failure. I've seen this happen before. My first semester as a college professor, there was this guy in my classroom, 18 years of age. We were 3 weeks into the semester. He got a letter from financial aid saying that he did not qualify for financial aid. He sent that email to me. I started to do some investigation and I found that if you are convicted of even a minor drug charge, such as marijuana, you would never be able to have financial aid in your future. It doesn't fit, the penalty doesn't fit, right? Well, he was in the car with 3 other people. He was the 4th person. Less than an ounce of marijuana was found in the vehicle and the cop decided to charge everybody. Well, that charge stuck to him and he has to continue to live with that penalty now. That's why I advocate to decriminalize marijuana in the United States of America. It does not fit the penalty that people have to endure. Okay, back then police said they barged into the home because a neighbor said they heard gunshots. Yes, so let's illegally enter the home because we're gonna say somebody heard gunshots. 12 days later, the DA dropped the charges. They found them to not be substantiated. Dropped the charges against everybody but one. But by then, their names and mugshots had made national news and their lives had already been turned completely upside down. Put up their pictures again. They are now taking control of the narrative. They knew what happened to them was wrong. They knew what happened to them was a targeted attack against their humanity. They have now been justified by the judge and the prosecutor. Many of those arrested on drug charges filed a federal lawsuit in 2019 claiming that constitutional rights were violated. Those arrested were humiliated when they were forced to undergo strip searches at the jail, the lawsuit stated. Those strip searches were also as young as 17 years of age. Some spent multiple days in jail. Attorney Gerald Griggs, who happens to be a good friend of mine, he spoke on behalf of the Georgia NAACP, said, and I quote, "It's a very large settlement, so it sends a message to Georgia that if you violate somebody's civil rights, the NAACP and civil rights attorneys will hold you to task and protect those young people's rights." Jerry Weber, senior counsel with the Southern Center for Human Rights, said he'd still like to see the city rescind its policy of officers being allowed to enter a home without a warrant if they smell marijuana. But for now, he's pleased with the legal win. The Cartersville city manager has something to say. Cartersville city manager sent a statement to Fox 5 News saying that they made a business decision to settle due to the number of parties involved and that litigation would take years to resolve. It also says the city did not object to the settlement provided the city would not admit to any liability reflected in the statement. Cartersville police sent a one-line statement that basically said, we will continue to honor the Fourth Amendment, which protects people from unreasonable searches. The young people in this case are very astute as it relates to policy. So while they are getting some money, okay, they're gonna split the money. I'm sure the lawyer gets some money in this. They're not gonna get a bankroll, they're gonna get a little money. They actually wanna see the policies change for policing. They wanna take this momentum and transform procedures so that this does not happen in the future. That's how you connect people and policy. You take moments like this and you pivot the conversation to a policy dynamic, because right now, the Cartersville police, they have an issue with culture, not just with what is written. All right, David, thoughts?
Thoughts are, I'm glad that the Cartersville 70 are finally getting at least some measure of justice. I am astounded that the law exists as it does now, that simply by smelling marijuana, or you think you smell marijuana, that gives you the right to barge into somebody's house without a warrant. I mean, out here in Connecticut, we smell skunks all the time. Does that mean police, if they decide they don't like me or they don't like my skin color, they can barge down into my house to try to find some marijuana and then say, oh, well, we found an ounce, so now you got a problem. That's ridiculous. And the fact of the matter is, I'm glad we live in a society in a day and age where crooked cops, tyrants, racists, those are eventually gonna come back to haunt the taxpayers where they work. And it's wise for the taxpayers and for these cities to start weeding out some of these tyrants on the front end so it doesn't cost you on the back.
That's right, and remember, the police gotta pay this money. The police settled. That's defunding the police. It's amazing to me that individuals in the cities who are all anti-defund the police are pro-defunding the police when the police are defunding the police. Let me give you an update to a story. This is horrific. An unarmed child was shot, was killed. The cop who did it will not face charges. Now, this kid was caught up in some stuff. He was armed initially, but dropped his weapon based on command. I'm gonna remind you of what happened and then give you the update.
Please stop! Stop right now! Hands! Show me your hands! Drop it! Drop it! Shots fired! Shots fired! Get an ambulance up here now! Look at me! Look at me! Look at me! You all right? Where you shot? Need an ambulance. Got a gunshot victim. Shots fired by the police. Where you shot, man? Where you shot? Stay with me, stay with me.
All right, tempo, we'll get an ambulance rolling.
Somebody bring the medical kit now.
Okay, can someone send the medical kit, please? 24th and Sawyer, please. That one over there.
All right, I need a medical kit.
I got a medical kit.
Hey, hurry up.
I'm sorry, can I copy you?
I got a medical kit. I got a medical kit. Where'd you shot at? Right here?
Yeah, top in the chest.
Top in the chest. Give me a chest seal. What is it? Chest seal? Give me some gloves.
Chest seal. Stay with me.
Hey, stay awake. Stay awake,
Put
man.
the chest press on.
I am.
I'm gonna start CPR. I'm not feeling a heartbeat.
Go ahead. Just take it. Give me a light. Give me a light. Give me a light. Give me a light now. Give me a light. Give me a light.
Who has the medical kit?
All right.
Put it on, put it on.
Chest seal.
Yep.
All right. Hey, stay with us, buddy. Stay with us. Stay up.
Okay. Let's put up a picture of the 13-year-old child he killed. Here's the update. The cop will face no penalty. That is 13-year-old Adam Toledo. Adam Toledo was caught up in a bad situation. He needed guidance, I believe. He needed mentorship. But when he was shot and killed, he was not armed. He did not have a gun on him, nor did he try to shoot the officer. The gun had been thrown down. Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx said Tuesday she would not file charges against the Chicago cop in the death of the 13-year-old Adam Toledo. Very unfortunate, very sad. She said, and I quote, "This is a somber announcement. There are no winners in this situation." While Foxx said her office's investigation and the review by an outside agency found no evidence to support criminal charges, she was still critical of the actions taken by the officer. Toledo's death also prompted protests around the city. Last month, the Chicago PD unveiled an updated foot pursuit policy designed to present similar situations like you just saw on video. Here are the details, okay? The officer's name is Eric Stillman. Eric Stillman shot this 13-year-old kid in the chest after chasing the teen down an alley in Little Village on March 29th. Fox said in a detailed account of the shooting, when officers arrived to investigate a shot spotter alert, that's the system used to determine where gunfire took place. The kid was walking down the alley and with a 22-year-old Ruben Roman, and both ran. All right, let's put up a picture of Officer Stillman. That is the cop. So the prosecutor said, Ms. Fox said, as Adam ran, his hands were near his waistband. Officer Stillman believed that Adam had a gun. After running nearly a full block in the alley, Officer Stillman saw a gun in Adam's right hand and shouted at him to drop it. Well, Adam did drop it, okay? Adam began turning around towards Stillman with his left hand raised up in front of his body and his right hand lowered at his side near a wooden fence post in the alley. Almost simultaneously, Adam tossed the gun and turned toward the officer with his right hand raised, which no longer held the firearm. And Stillman fired a single shot, Fox said. Now I know some of you are going to say, well, Doc, the cop was obviously in fear of his life. He had no choice. Now I want to remind you, from the cop's command to him shooting the kid in the chest is actually less than 1 second. It is less than 1 second, they've timed it. It's part of the evidence now. Less than 1 second. And need I remind you of the stories we've covered on Indisputable, where we have had white males literally stab cops in front of other cops and they live. We did a story just a few days ago where a white male, heavily armed, came to a sheriff's office to arrest the sitting sheriff, and they decided to engage in physical combat with this heavily armed individual. No gunshots, not even tasered. 13-year-old kid is dead, and he did drop his weapon, okay? The timing of these actions was within 1 second, to be precise, 838 milliseconds. Adams' family said in a statement they were disappointed with Fox's decision and would contact the US Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, good luck, to address this horrific travesty. There has been no sign of federal charges. Toledo's family also is seeking more than $50,000 in a civil suit, according to court documents. The complaint alleges Stillman shined a strobe light mounted to his gun at Toledo while telling him to stop and show his hands. And doing so, the officer failed to issue clear direct commands that would have de-escalated and slowed down the situation. The complaint states, even though Stillman radioed for medical assistance, he did not immediately provide needed life-saving care. Got to bring the humanity back to stuff. There are people who have asked me, they have made requests of me saying, Doc, we want you to participate in a shoot, don't shoot scenario, right? They want me to go to one of these boot camps for police and do the shoot, don't shoot thing. And I always decline. And here's why, I'm not a cop. I'm not trained to be a cop. That's like asking me to do some kind of surgery on somebody as a medical doctor. Well, I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not doing surgery on somebody to prove your point. You are a trained damn cop. You're trained for a reason, and because of that training, we should hold you to a higher standard of care, just like a medical doctor. We should hold you to a higher standard of responsibility, just like a psychiatrist. They have particular training, and because of that training, they're held to a higher standard. But then all of a sudden in the industry of policing, you get training and we hold you to a lower standard of accountability, a lower standard of responsibility. It makes no sense. David, thoughts here?
It actually does make sense when I think about the institutional racism that still exists in our society and the institutional flaws that exist in policing. The fact of the matter is we have something seriously wrong when somebody gets shot because they didn't comply with an officer the way the officer felt that they should. I mean, if I'm a police officer, and I gotta believe, even if I go through the training, I would rather risk me me getting shot by some kid than me taking the life of somebody else. I mean, why couldn't the officer wait an extra second, an extra beat and say, oh, show me your hands and hold off? Well, the reason is because he didn't see that his life as being valuable. And secondly, we have an institutional problem where police say, shoot first, ask questions later, protect yourself, particularly with people who are not super obedient to you. That's wrong. Their job is to protect and serve all of us, not themselves.
Yeah, and you have to ask the question, does legal mean right? You know, Dick Gregory said something to me before he passed, and he said, you gotta be very careful because this world will have you thinking that everything legal is right and everything illegal is wrong. Right and wrong, your moral capacity should supersede them both. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable, stick and stay. All right, welcome back. We still have a lot of show left. Before I read the comments, let me remind everyone of a few really amazing things. Number one, the watch list, the big homie, J.R. Jackson. Watch it because it's amazing. Go to tyt.com/watch list, TYT to follow, subscribe, and support the show. That's live weekdays, 12 p.m. Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Find out the stories you need to pay attention to. He covers a lot: news, politics, culture, current events, sports, and more. Also, Shorty's voting. Voting has begun to help TYT win in the Shorty Awards this year. We're up for 2 categories. That's awesome. Support TYT in news and media and help shop TYT win retail and e-commerce. Go to tyt.com/award to vote. You can vote every day until Friday, March 18th, all right? Every day until Friday, March 18th. And let us not forget about the Bituation Room with Francesca, that's now part of TYT. Join Francesca and some of her famous progressive friends as they deliver an hour of laughs and analysis. Very dope content. New episodes are available on Mondays. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, basically wherever you get your podcasts from. Let me go to some of these amazing comments. Colorado Blue Blazer Regular says, congratulations, Chief Justice Roberts. You are going to forever be known as the Chief Justice who politicized and destroyed the credibility of the Supreme Court. Wellington Smith, who arrests people for cannabis possession? Geez, this is the 21st century. Arresting those kids for use or possession is obviously racist. It is. It was just a pretext. They wanted those kids to be in jail. So they used the technicality of that ridiculous law to put them there. And now they're defunding the police, but nobody has a problem in their community when the police are defunding the police. Nicholas says, why do we let cowards be cops? Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
I need you to hit the red button.
What are you doing, a child? I don't understand.
I don't understand why you don't just hit the damn red button and tell me my stuff.
What is your problem? Like, honestly. Like, there's a prompt right there. All you have to do is hit the red button. That's all you have to do. Why are you fighting?
I don't have to hit the red button. I do not have to hit the red button. I have to give you money for what you're...
What is your problem with me? Why? Why are you fighting me on this?
Why are you fighting me?
Because it doesn't make sense for you to fight me.
It doesn't make sense for you to fight me. I'm a customer.
Hey, it's not that hard, man. Like,
You mind your own business.
Oh, my fault. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get you going.
I'll be calling district headquarters as soon as I get home.
Have fun. 1267.
Mr. Karen, those shorts are way too damn short for that long sleeve shirt you have on. Okay, we have not identified this particular male, Karen. If you know him, beware. He does not like to touch red buttons, okay? Simple thing, this happens to every single one of us. You pay for something, if you need to decline something, in order to clear the screen of the cashier who's waiting on you, you have to press a button. You have to hit the button, say no thank you. You hit the button. And he says, now damn it, he doesn't have to do a damn thing. You hit the button. And so he forces the cashier to come around and hit the button. And then when somebody who's recording, the guy recording has a little bit of common sense, trying to be nice, says, hey, my man, I mean, come on. I mean, he tells him, mind your business. All right, this is quintessential Karenicity happening right here. I mean, and then when he says he's going to call district corporate, that's a man who knows his levels of corporate intervention here, okay? He's going to call district. He knows it doesn't go so far up that he needs to get the big guys involved, but he is definitely a middle management guy. David, have you ever seen somebody so adverse to hitting the red button at the cashier?
You went after the shorts. My first thought was, what's up with that hat that he put on at the end? I mean, talk about foolish. But no, the fact of the matter is, if you use an ATM card or a credit card at any sort of these kiosks or even a checkout, you have to press the button. Gives you the total. Says the total is $10.95 or whatever it is. Is that okay? Now, if he's, I guess, suppose if he's just handing over cash, he wouldn't be using that kiosk anyway. But they might say, well, is this the right amount? If this is the right amount. So I think this is a guy who's just having a really bad day. Maybe his shorts were not fitting him so well this particular day, and he was feeling a little bit uncomfortable, and so he's just gonna take it out on that poor red button.
Yeah, we highlight people like that, David, because we wanna make sure that we provide common sense and also protection for those who are in particular industries, right? Too many times they get talked to as if they're less than human. They are degraded, and we don't play that over here. So for individuals who act like this male Karen, beware, because you may end up on an episode of Indisputable. Okay, one of the most gut-wrenching things I have seen in a long time. I'm just gonna go to the video. It's graphic. This is a 67-year-old Asian woman. She's elderly. The man who just punched her, he is now being held without bail. He called her an Asian B word and proceeded to attack her. A man hit an elderly woman in the back of the head and continued to punch and stomp and kick this elderly woman. That is what happened here. As people are starting to notice, he's looking around, he's trying to make sure he can get away with this damn near murder. It's one of the most horrific things I've seen done to an elderly person, okay? So let me give you some background to this. Let's put up this monster's mug shot. This was in Yonkers, New York. He has been arrested for attempted murder after he allegedly punched on a 67-year-old woman 125 times after calling her a racial slur. His name is Tamel Esco. He's 42 years of age. He's being held in the Westchester County Jail. Here's some details. The 67-year-old victim was entering her apartment building on Friday evening when the perpetrator, whom police have identified as Mr. Esco, saw her and called her an Asian B word. The victim ignored the comment, went into the vestibule of the building and tried to open the second door to the lobby. Esco approached her from behind, punched her head, knocked her to the floor, stood over her and punched her in the head and face repeatedly. He also stomped on her 7 times, spat in her face as well, according to the police. Put up his picture again. You see, that's a coward. And for anyone who wants to make a comment and say something like, well, what did she do to him? I don't give a damn if she did anything to him or not. I highly doubt there was any interaction beforehand. But even if it comes out later that they had some kind of verbal argument or dispute, or maybe they had words with each other, you do not get a pass on hitting an elderly woman in the back of the head and walk around calling yourself a man. Not in my book. You're a coward in my book. You will forever be a coward in my book for that action, forever. I don't give a damn what you do later in life. Here's some more details. The 67-year-old victim was entering her apartment. He called her a racial slur. The victim ignored the comment. The victim has not been identified, but we do know this. The elderly woman that he damn near killed, she has multiple contusions, lacerations on the head and face. She has bleeding on the brain, was admitted to the hospital. She was listed in stable condition. There's a witness who called 911, said, and I quote, "I started knocking on the door, and when I did that, it caught his attention, and that's when he got off of her. He went out the door, went to the corner, and put his hands up." If this witness would not have created that disturbance, that elderly woman would likely be dead right now, okay? When police arrived, they found and arrested Esco without incident. He was charged with 1 count of attempted murder as a hate crime and assault in the 2nd degree involving a victim 65 years of age or older. And I know somebody's going to say, well, Doc, there are some Asian people who are racist against black people. That's right, that's true. There are white people who are racist against black people. There's some Asian people who are bigoted against black folk. That is all true. That has nothing to do with this. This is hate. This is violent, this is criminal. And we cannot become the evil we seek to destroy. When we adopt narratives like that to give some justification for people like this who assault individuals and call out racial slurs while doing so, if we start giving them a pass or trying to give them a measure of allowance for what they did, we become the evil we proclaim we want to destroy. It has no room here. All right. He does have a history of previous arrests for assault. And we know that attacks on Asian Americans has skyrocketed since Trump was president and beyond. Okay, David, thoughts on this?
My heart breaks for this poor woman, and it's just horrific to watch. And I have a feeling that all of our hearts are going to break a second time the more we delve into Mr. Esco's past, because I have a feeling, as so often happens, we will discover that there were key moments in this man's life when society could have done more to intervene, to step in, to prevent him from turning into the kind of monster that he became, and that every one of those opportunities that is missed leads to something this horrific happening. And so it's on all of us. If you know somebody who's got some mental problems, if you know somebody who has anger management problems, all of us as a community, as a society, have to do something. You got to do something to try to help that person, to help ourselves.
All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable, stick and stay. Welcome back, it's indisputable, good to be with you. We got a lot of comments, I will read as many as I can. Greyhound Dragon, he looks real tough in those shorts and bucket hat. I mean, the line of, he's gonna call district corporate. All right, Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon, wow, 14 previous arrests for assault, half of them felonies. Why is he not in prison? He's proven that he's a violent danger to society. Does he need to kill someone before he's in prison for life? That's a very fair question, obviously, because this could have ended in death if it had not been for the individual who distracted him. Kevin Parsons, button, who's got the button? Bernie, the Kiwi Dragon, it's usually harder to resist pushing the red button. Yeah, Rosie, this so-called man needs to be under the jail. Yeah, agreed. Okay. Fascist Killer says he's like an ex-basketball player from the 1970s, talking about the mail carrying. Tony Starks 347 calling district headquarters. I am district headquarters. Madman, none mad, sun's out, buns out. Yeah. All right. Once again, banking while black. A black man tries to cash a simple check. He gets the police called on him. This happened in Arizona. All right, let's put up his picture, full throttle. His name is Alderman Brewer. A man in Arizona was surrounded by the police after a bank manager called the police on him because he was trying to cash a check worth $3,200. I guess that bank is not accustomed to a black man with so much money. It was the penal credit union in that county. Brewer's bank recommended that he take the check to the woman's bank to have the funds quicker. But as Brewer waited to receive his money, the bank manager called the police and told them the check presented by Brewer was fake. Now, how did this happen? Well, Brewer sold a speedboat, okay? He sold a speedboat to a woman on Facebook Marketplace to be exact, who paid for the item with a check. And she said, go ahead and take the check to my bank, you can cash it there, no problem. He goes there, he gets police called him. In reality, the check was very authentic. And they considered it inconclusive, but still the cops arrived. The manager called the authorities before calling the woman who wrote the check, verified it to be the bank while the police were on their way. The police officers were not aware or told that the customer verified the check for 10 minutes. Now here's the thing, literally the bank manager, they end up verifying the funds. But before they verified the check and the authenticity, they decided to, let's just go ahead and call 911 first. Let's make that our first obligation to the customer. And then after we call 911, we will verify to see if this check is real. And then once they confirmed the check was authentic, they did not proceed to call 911 again and say, hey guys, false alarm. So the police are still on their way. Let's put up that picture again. This is the scene of the cops surrounding this young man who was simply trying to cash his check. It was just, black guy, locks in his hair, tattoos, came on a Harley, let's assume the worst, Brewer said. Why embarrass somebody like that? Why, make them feel less than a man? This came days after a similar situation was uncovered where the film director, Ryan Coogler, was detained by police because they thought he was trying to steal money out of the bank. And you have scenarios like this that happen all across the country. Most of them do not receive media attention. Why do you think the bank manager, possibly a very trained individual as it relates to banking policy, why do you think the bank manager, not a new employee, not someone who just became a banker, but the manager, why do you think they decided to call 911 first and then verify the check second? David, what are your thoughts?
I thought so. This wasn't just about intimidation. This was about they wanted this particular African-American man to possibly suffer harm, because that's what happens. When you call police and police come rushing to an emergency scene and suddenly there's a black man who may have dreads, may not look like the police. And then the police are gonna say what? Hey, show us your hands. And if he doesn't show you the hands the right way, then he gets shot. I mean, that is the chain of events that is a possibility in this day and age. And so shame on the bank manager. To me, it's racism. It's you're endangering somebody's life deliberately, as opposed to doing your job, which is to just be responsible, take a deep breath and check out, okay, is this real or not? Let's the man's not being violent. He's not arguing. He's cooperative. What is your problem?
Yeah. Just check for the damn funds, okay? That's all they gotta do. A woman who was raped by a powerful man went to the police. She goes to the police, she ends up getting arrested. That woman ends up committing suicide. A reporter writes about it. The police then sue the reporter for writing about the cover-up connected to that rape. That lawsuit against the reporter has just been dropped by the court. I'm gonna give you an interesting background to this saga. Let's put up the picture of Katie Baker. Katie Baker is a BuzzFeed News investigative reporter. She was sued by the police. So an Alabama judge on Tuesday tossed out a libel suit filed by 2 state law enforcement officers who claimed BuzzFeed's reporting on the suicide of University of Alabama student defamed their character, ruling that the publication's only agenda was to influence systemic change in how sexual assault allegations are treated nationwide. They tried to bully that reporter. She wrote the article about the suicide, expose further victimization that was related to this. Baker has tweeted an update to the lawsuit. Baker said in the tweet, 3 years ago, 2 cops sued me over a story I wrote about a rape case in Alabama. Today, a federal judge threw it out and said my story was true and my only agenda was to influence systemic change. So let me give you some background to the original story of how we even got here. Let's put up a picture of Megan. Megan Rondini, a University of Alabama student from Texas. She reported to the police that she was raped by a prominent man out of Tuscaloosa in 2015. Megan's story became public in a June 2017 BuzzFeed story. As told by her parents, family, and friends, they claimed the 20-year-old was mistreated by the county investigators, the university, the regional medical center, etc. Rondini left Tuscaloosa and took her own life. She killed herself. Let's put up a picture of TJ Bond. TJ Bond is the Tuscaloosa man implicated in the alleged sexual assault of Megan. Is part of a family that is well connected and powerful in the Tuscaloosa community, and where major financial supporters of the University of Alabama are. That family is. The family settled with the University of Alabama on the 2nd anniversary of their daughter's death. Bond was never charged with any crime, and the grand jury that heard the evidence declined to indict him because, remember, the prosecutor gets to present the case in the way they feel fit. All right? The boss of the cops directly involved in the cover-up, Sheriff Rob Abernathy, the man in charge. Okay? This story has been exposed. We want to amplify the voice of individuals who are victims and who have the courage to come forward. David, thoughts on this?
My thoughts are, I mean, look, this poor college student, this one young woman, she did everything she was supposed to do. She complained, she got a rape kit, she went to police, and time after time after time, there was a wall that was put up. So of course she fell into deep depression and despair and felt like, oh my God, I've done everything I'm supposed to do. I got taken advantage of and nobody's gonna help me. And so I totally get why she would be so depressed. And I just feel for her family that she took her own life. Kudos to the reporter from the Daily Beast who decided or who said, you know what, I'm gonna tell this woman's story. And I'm gonna talk about the institutional injustice and what happens when you have corruption at its core, which this was. Whether or not this young man from this prominent family actually raped her or not, the cover up that got involved here with the local community, with the university, with everybody trying to protect this family, as opposed to their responsibility towards protecting and helping one of their students, it is beyond sickening. Kudos to the reporter for trying to blow the lid off this thing.
Yeah, and big ups to the judge that saw it for what it was and decided to say this case has no merit, we're kicking it out. Remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.